you hear them?
Hi everybody, Sally Diane here with Haunting Live podcast, and they're going down into the basement of the Queen's.
We've been granted access to the basement. This location did have a great fire. How are you feeling right now, Trent? Don't be afraid.
And hello everyone, welcome to Haunting Live podcast this week. We have reached episode number 21 of season 2 already, and thank you so much for tuning in each and every week right here on our Facebook for Haunting Live podcast. This week we do have something new here, as you noticed maybe behind me if you're watching on social media. We have changed our layout a little bit, and we have a new background for you guys, and if you like it, leave a comment below, and we'll keep this new look in the future and hopefully going forward. I'm liking it quite a bit already, so hope you guys do too. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We are live on Facebook here and also going to be posting to the YouTube channel later on, and also you can catch us later on the podcast apps if you missed a live show on our social media. But today we do have a special guest joining us all the way from Scotland today, and very happy to have her here. She's going to be talking about shamanism today and what she does in that field. And so with that, let's bring on our special guest today. Hi Kim, how are you?
Hi Trevor, I'm good. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's a long ways for you, but thank you for taking the time out and talking a little bit about shamanism today and what that's all about for you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm afraid that I may have disappointed your listeners and viewers because I don't have a Scottish accent.
Oh, no, that's no worries at all. I appreciate your input into the subject that we're talking about, and any insight that you can share, I'm sure will be appreciated on that topic. So with that, describe with us to our listeners a little bit about what shamanism is all about, for those that might not know what it is.
Yeah, so what is shamanism? That is always the big question, and probably the hardest question to answer. So we've started at the hardest one. And, shamanism is a spiritual practice that has been around for at least 10,000 years that we know about. Pretty much every culture has a history of shamanism. It's just a matter of how broken that history is. So, for example, in our culture, our history of shamanism is quite broken. We've really gone away from that. But with other cultures, they're much more connected to those shamanistic roots. And I'm not a historian, obviously, so it's a little bit difficult for me to speak as well about shamanism as some of my peers can. But for me, what shamanism is a way of working directly with the spirits. So, we can come about direct revelation from the spirits in order to bring about healing, either our own healing or the healing of our families and communities, and even the earth. So we work directly with our spirit guides, our ancestor spirits, and different types of spirits in order to bring this healing to wherever it's needed. And I think that direct relationship with the spirits is what makes shamanism unique, as opposed to some other modalities of healing that, especially in Ontario, that we would be familiar with. So, for example, Reiki and whatnot.
Yeah, so basically, in a nutshell, then shamanism is a practice of healing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was taught that everybody in the world is born with a healing gift. And the reason why we have this healing gift is to bring healing to our community. And remember that sometimes healing ourselves helps to, there's always a ripple effect when we partake in our own healing that then impacts our families and impacts our community. So So the reason we have these gifts is for healing, and shamanism is a way to facilitate that healing that the spirits bring to us, or that the spirits give to us when they give us special gifts. So, for example, maybe the ability to see ghosts, earthbound spirits, right? Or to maybe do healing with hands, or with artwork or music, or just by being someone who's really good at holding space for people who need to express and share what's going on with them. These are all healing gifts. So, and for shamanism, because it is about that direct relationship, I guess the practice is to facilitate that. But yeah, everything is for healing. It's I was taught the only reason that we have these abilities is for that.
So where did shamanism originate from then? What culture is it based out of?
So pretty much every culture could lay a claim on shamanism. Now the word, of course, is a Tongan word, right? So it comes from in and around Siberia. But if we look at the origins of shamanism, again, it's what culture do you want to talk about? So a really good example of that is our North American indigenous nations, right? They practice their traditional healing ways. And as a non-native, I would look at that and say, okay, that's shamanistic, it's animistic. But then I think about my own culture. And my mom was Scottish, my father is of Scottish descent. And we had shamanism as well in our ancient days. We don't know much about Celtic ancient religion, but we know a little. We know a little that has been verified. And what we do know is that there seems to have been a shamanic tradition, and we know that from the lore, from the stories. And so we don't know, we do know what the ancient Celts believed. We don't know how they practice. Anybody who says they do is talking through the hole in their head. We don't know that. But we do know that there was evidence of shamanic practices, whatever they were, right? We know that there was that idea of going into the spirit world. You see, one of the things that characterizes shamanism is that the shamanic practitioner can journey in and out of the spirit world. And in this way, they can bring back healing gifts for the person that they're working with. They can bring back messages from the healing world, from the spirit world and the spirit to that person. And these messages may bring healing with them. These gifts will bring healing with them, whatever kind of healing that person needs. So we do know that almost every single culture, including European cultures, and I'm harping on that intentionally, because I think that we all know that, yes, there's, shamanistic traditions in North America and South America and Australia. But in Europe, we have them too. If you do look at shamanism originated in Siberia and around the Atlas Mountains and basically Russia. In former Russian nation. But every nation has its ancient religious and cultural practices, whether it's Scotland, Ireland, Poland, right, Germany. Yeah, and we're seeing a real resurgence of interest in that, I guess, our ancient ways and that desire to connect with our ancient ways. And as a shamanic practitioner, I would venture to say that I think that those spiritual relationships that have always been held by people of every culture, no one culture has a monopoly on spirituality. It's one of the first things I was ever taught. In the Indigenous community in Ontario, every person has or can have those spiritual relationships with their guides, with their ancestors. That's not unique. That's used to be the norm. And I think that nowadays, as a society, if we look at mainstream North American society or even mainstream European society, there is a hunger to reconnect with our spiritual sides, which means reconnecting with our spirits. And the spirits in turn, I think, are kind of stepping forward. You know, they're there. They want to help. They're ready to help. They just need us to say, okay, we're ready. Let's go. So I can't remember what your original question was.
No, that's absolutely perfect. A lot of information for people that might not understand exactly what shamanism is or where it originated from. I think that shed a lot of light onto sort of the background of shamanism. Now, for you yourself personally, you mentioned to me earlier you're originally from here in Ontario, which is awesome, and you just recently moved back to your homeland of Scotland. So, congratulations on the big move. And how did you learn about shamanism while you were here in Ontario? What sort of area did you learn it from?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I was born in Tottenham, Ontario, so you know I'm a Tottenham girl, and I lived in Toronto for almost 20 years. So I came. So how did I come to it? I think that for me, I came to it through dreams. I don't consider myself to be psychic or any of that. But I've always dreamt. The one gift I've never questioned is dreaming, and I've dreamt since I was a little girl. And when I was 18, the way I dreamt started to shift, and I started to get visitations by relatives and friends who had passed on through dreams. And whatever doubt I had ever had, are my dreams real? Are they not? Are they premonitions? Are they? I mean, I was a young woman in my teens at the time when my not ancestors but relatives, people I knew, came to visit me in my dreams. It was real. I mean, every part of me knew it was real. I call them waking dreams. You know, those dreams you have, and they're so. I mean, it's like you're awake in the dream, and then when you wake up, you're still awake. It's very strange, but I always think of them as waking dreams. They're big dreams, right? They're big dreams when the spirits come to us and they talk to us, or when our relatives come to us. And so that was fine. I went on my dreaming way. I was just, yay, I dreamed, didn't think much of it. And when I was 19, I moved to Spain. I lived in Madrid. I was an au pair. I fell in love, and I got pregnant. With my son, who was like my souvenir from Spain. But my son's father is actually from New Mexico. And my son is part Indigenous. So my son was raised, though, with me up in Canada. And I really didn't know really anything about that culture. And the fact that I was raising a son who was part Indigenous, I used to say, well, when you're older, you can go down and you can figure that out. I didn't really feel that I had any responsibility to teach him about his culture. That was up to his dad and his dad's family, right? So, and then when he was about 12, I had a dream, and the dream was all about him, and it was all about basically bringing him to his community. My God, I was living in the beaches. What did I know about any of this? So, it's interesting when we start to go down our spiritual journey, and Trevor, I'm sure you've experienced this. The strangest people come out of the woodwork, people you would never expect, come out of the woodwork to help and to guide us. And that's exactly what happened with me. And within a few months, I was able to go into my son's community and meet with some elders and bring him in. And they said, well, you've been brought here because it's time for your son to go through his rites of passage. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm skipping over big parts of this because a lot of this is my son's story. And, he's of an age, he'll tell it if he wants to. So I'm sensitive to that. But the spirits or the elder said, right, we're going to work with your son to bring him through this period of his life. And I said, okay, that's wonderful. The single mom and all these, healthy men coming to teach my son. It was a really wonderful gift. And I still didn't understand it. but I knew it was good. You know, I had enough wherewithal to know this is a good, healthy thing for my son. And for me, I thought I would be driving him to and from ceremony. I didn't know that I was invited to. And of course, the community, the Indigenous community in Toronto, it's relatively inclusive. And so what happened was that the community reached out to me to teach me about spirituality, because traditionally, traditionally, the teachings flow from the parent to the child. And so the way it was described to me was that the elders at that time, in order for my son to never question the white side of himself, if he chose to live in the community and work in the community, he needed to see the white side of himself being fully accepted. And so I was. And that period of my life taught me about spirituality. So I learned how to approach. I learned how to approach ceremony. To be really clear at this, but I did not learn how to do Indigenous ceremony. That's a completely different thing, and I don't do Indigenous ceremony. And if anybody wants to learn more about Indigenous ceremony, they should go talk to an Indigenous traditional healer. Yeah, but I did learn how to approach it, and the one of the hallmarks of spirituality in that culture that I got to experience was this idea of we all have an individual relationship with our spirit. This isn't anything that is, it's special, but it's not special in a way of being abnormal. It's a normal thing for us to work with our spirits, to be in touch with our spirits and listen to what our spirit guides are telling us. And what was a really incredible experience at that time was to not only, I was being taught this, but then to have a community where I could go and talk about this without having to self-edit myself, right? At this time, I was working on Bay Street. So I had these different sides, right, where I was in between both worlds. And it was incredible to go in, and for a time I worked at Anishinaabe Health Health Toronto, and so every day I was in this, and to be able to go in and say, I had a dream last night, and then one of the elders, oh, did you? Tell me about it, and take it seriously, like it was important or something, like I wasn't making it up, or I wasn't just, I don't know, crazy. We love to throw that word around, particularly around spirituality. And that for me was a revelation in itself, being in a community that not only accepted that everybody is spiritual or can be spiritual, but normalized it. So my son, he grew up, and it got to a point where trying to get him to go to the sweat lodge is like when I was of an age and my mom trying to get me to go to church. And so he's went his own way, and I had more time, and I started to explore spirituality from my own cultural background. And at that time, I think this is where things really started to solidify. So I kind of had all these years of teachings behind me, which was like the foundation, and continues to be the foundation of my life, my practice, everything. But I found this woman, Tira Brandon Evans. She passed away a number of years ago now. And Tira, she was fabulous. So she calls herself a Celtic shaman, which is a very controversial term in, the Celtic spiritual circles. But that's what she calls herself. So that's that. And she had this course where you would learn about Celtic spirituality from reading the stories, the lore, the myths, right? And this was right up my alley, because having spent so much time, years in the Indigenous community, where teachings are shared by sharing stories, right? Everything's a story. So that idea, that connection between stories and shamanism was very strong. And so with Tira, she was teaching, Celtic spirituality by sharing our ancient stories. And I was all over that like white on rice. And she was good. Tira was an older woman. She must have been in her 70s at that point, maybe late 60s. She was in her 70s, and And she was tough. She reminded me of the traditional healers that I knew through Anishinaabe Health. And, she was very tough and no nonsense. So I worked with her. And one of the parts of her course was that we would have to read the myth, right? So the story. And then we'd have to answer like good old homework style questions on the story. But then we had to do a shamanic journey to go meet with the characters, like with the people within the story. And that I had very spontaneously journeyed, as one often does, when I was at ceremony. But it was spontaneous, and it was within the context of a safe ceremony that the conductor would be holding, but it was very spontaneous. So this was different because this is the same thing. A journey is a journey, but this was, it was proactive, right? It was saying, right, I'm going to have a journey now and taking steps, listening to music, drumming, rattling, whatever, to actually go into the spirit world. And so Tira taught me how to do shamanic journeying in order to learn the teachings of the ancient Celts, because in our traditional way, I said, we don't know much, but we know a little. And what we do know is that the stories were, what's the word, Trevor? Is it mnemonics? It's like the stories were a way to retain information, right? So for example, there's this incredible story called The Wooing of Aten. And it is a story of a woman who's, she falls in love. She's a fairy queen, and she marries a fairy king. And then the fairy king's first wife is jealous and basically kills her. And she goes through different lifetimes, and she falls in love in her next lifetime. But the king, the fairy king, he pursues her through different lifetimes. And there is a wonderful, historian, and his name escapes me, Trevor. I'm going to let you know after this, and I want you to post it since I referenced it, because he's wonderful, and his work doesn't get the attention it deserves.
Sure, we can post something else after you finish your story, but yes, continue on, and we'll post that up later on.
Brilliant, thank you. So he wrote this, he did this wonderful research paper on the fact that the wooing of Aten, it's a wonderful little story, but it's actually indicative of the moon cycles and basically a passage of time, the way the ancient Celts measured time, right? So days, weeks, months, years. They had a different way for measuring time, and that this story, it speaks to all of those lunar cycles. And so this is why the stories are so important to learn, right? And then with knowing that we have a somewhat shamanic culture that goes back as far, then one wonders, well, what knowledge is hidden in these stories? So how do we find that knowledge? Well, we study the stories, and then we go into the spirit world and we ask, because a lot of shamanism is direct revelation. And so this is what Tira taught me to do, and that changed everything, because now, while I had a relationship with my spirit, now it was something that I was actually seeking. It wasn't just that I would, we'd be going through my day and then something would happen, or I'd have a dream when I was not expecting it, or I'd be in ceremony and then, someone else's ceremony, and then suddenly I'm having vision. This was totally different, because now I was the one who was stepping out of my comfort zone to proactively go into the spirit world, to meet with these spirits and say, hi, this is who I am, and this is why I'm here, and this is what I wanted to ask you. So after that, the calling just became overwhelming. The spirits became overwhelming in my life. I had to do something. And I was really uncomfortable, because in the Indigenous world, one does not self-identify. It's hugely taboo. But I'm not Indigenous. And in my culture, that's the only way to do it. So I've struggled with that for many years, until I finally have a good friend who's a well-known medicine person and really supports me. And I went to him one day and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I really feel there's this healer, non-native, right? I really think I want to work with him. I like his program, but it is like a money program. I have to pay to learn. That's another taboo. And then I'm self-identifying. And he said, look, I've known you from the beginning of this journey. He's like, I've always thought you could do the work. So that made me feel good. It gave me confidence, you know. And he said, and you know the teachings. And if you have a gift, what do the teachings say? Well, Trevor, if one is born with a gift, this goes full circle now, this conversation. We are given a gift to help our community. If we have a gift, we have an obligation to use our gift to help the community. The way all of this presented to me was the way it was presenting to me. So, you know, so he said, you know, I'll make you your rattle, go take the course. So I did. And I worked with Daniel Leonard, who was in Toronto. He's now in Salt Spring, out in BC. And I worked with Daniel for years. I've done a couple of things with Daniel. And on the end of my first course with Daniel, it was a year long, I opened up my practice, and I've been practicing ever since. So that would have been only 4 years ago. So for all intents and purposes, I'm really new at this work. I mean, yeah, I've been walking this path for 15 years, but the practice itself, I think, is still quite new. You know, most people in my line of work and your line of work, decades, and, you know, we become, I don't know, intermediates when we're in our 80s, you know. Yeah, so that's how I came to the work. And it really was this thing of spirituality coming for me, constantly being put in my path, or the spirit showing up and saying, right, Kim, it's time for you to learn, it's time for you to do. And me struggling with it. I can't self-identify. I don't know, can I really do this work? No, I can't do this work. I always struggling with that validation, needing validation. And then we look back and I think, you know, technically I really shouldn't have needed validation, but I absolutely did. So, you know, it's a tough thing when we feel that calling. It really is. And how do we go about acknowledging that calling, particularly when, like me, you know, I was working a job on Bay Street. It wasn't, you know, a huge job or anything, but it was the environment. I'm from a family that is not spiritual at all, right? Like, I think my mom was gifted. Absolutely. She had, in here they call it the sight. But we didn't talk about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it. Oh my God, if you tried to bring that up to my mother, she would flip out. Today, by the way, would have been her 78th birthday. So, yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, she was born like a block away from where I live now. So it's exciting for me.
That's very interesting, too, that you bring up that in your family history, if you talked about it, that would have been blocked. Is that something that's fairly common in Scotland, or is it more... I thought Scotland would have had more like an openness to the paranormal type things, or is it sort of more of a taboo type thing over there? So
it's a nuanced thing. It's a nuanced thing, and you know, you're asking me this, so consider the source that this information is going to come from. I'm pretty biased, you know, and the people who I connect to are generally, you know, they think similar. So. What I have found here is that, okay, no, people don't talk. This is not dinner conversation. It's not. But having said that, people one-on-one, men especially, are they're actually quite open to it. One of the things that's a really big deal in Scotland are spiritualists, mediums. There's so many spiritualists and so many mediums, and the spiritualist church over here is a really big deal. It's quite large. So I think that part of spirituality is absolutely accepted, and people understand it. Reiki has a foothold in Scotland for sure. People are coming to understand Reiki, and they accept it. So if you say to someone, "Well, I'm going to get Reiki done," they'll be, oh yeah, oh that's great, or they'll be kind of mildly curious, right? but they don't. But there's no disrespect or anything. There's no cynicism about that. Shamanism, what I'm finding over here is people really they don't really understand it. But this is the same at home. It's not exactly a mainstream thing. But you're right. In Scotland, this is a small country, and it's a very wild country. Not in terms of the people, maybe a little in terms of my family, but I live in Irvine, North Ayrshire. Not even a 10-minute drive, and I'm out in beautiful countryside, and I can walk that land. We have the right to roam in Scotland. I go 40 minutes north to Mearshill Park and can walk those hills, and they're wild and they're beautiful. You go a little bit north of that, and Trevor, you can drink the water out of the stream, provided they haven't gone through a farm, so you know where your stream's coming from. But yeah, you can, or down, south to the Lead Hills, and the land is so, there's not a lot of people in this country. So I do find that with the people that I've worked with so far, the clients that I've had, there is the connection to the land. It may be it may be buried a little bit, but it's not that far. It's pretty it's just under the surface. So people still have that really deep connection to the land, I find. And so when we are connected to the land, thinking about being able to accept this idea that the land has a spirit, that there are land spirits around us, that there are spirits around us working with us, working, to help us, right? We're just hanging out, doing whatever nature spirits do. That's not a big leap. So I do find that people here seem to be they accept a little quicker. But you know what? I haven't even been here 10 months. You got to ask me in a year, and I'll let you know if my theory was correct, or maybe 5 years.
Well, we'll definitely have to have you back on the show for sure and see how you progress with your spiritualness over there in Scotland as it compares to being back over here in Ontario. So how do you deal with day-to-day clients? What do you actually provide for your clients when you deal with shamanism? Is it a healing? Do you practice healing on them or other services? What exactly do you do day-to-day for different people?
Sure. Okay, so everything with shamanism is about healing, right? Like that's the thing. That's the thing that the thing is about, is healing. So what generally will happen, especially right now, because you guys are in lockdown, we're coming out of lockdown now, we're a few months ahead, is a client will generally email me, right? In fact, I think that's the only way they can get in touch with me is by emailing me, which is good. And they'll email me, and everybody's different. So someone will just email me, hi, I want a soul retrieval. Here's my number, thank you. Okay. Most will give me just a small explanation, maybe a little bit about what's going on with them. And so usually what will happen is that depending on what they ask for. So if someone asks, say, for maybe a power animal retrieval or a soul remembering ceremony, these are all healing ceremonies, or for some spiritual counseling, then generally I don't need to do too much pre-intake work with them. So usually we can just go ahead and book something. If somebody asks me though for soul retrieval, that's a little bit different. There's an intensity to soul retrieval work. So usually what will happen at that point is that I will book a quick call with the person just to get a sense of what's going on with them. And if the person understands soul retrieval, they do want to do soul retrieval, I ask them a couple of quick questions, things like, history of addiction, for example. How long have they been in addiction recovery? If there's depression, things like that. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychologist, and if I feel okay about it, right? So my intuition, and for me, intuition is when the spirit guides whisper in our ear. So if my spirits are like, yeah, this is okay, then what will happen is that I will do a quick journey for that client. Just, after I'm done talking to them, I do a quick journey. I'll check in with the spirits and ask the spirits, is it the right time for, like, first of all, is this the right time for this person to have the ceremony? Yes or no. No, there's always a reason why. So still there's going to be healing that comes from this. If it's yes, okay, am I the person to do it? Am I the person to facilitate this healing work? And, yes, okay, great. So then I can go back to the person and say, all right, the spirits are going to do the work. It's going to be great. Because remember, Trevor, I don't do the work. I'm not the healer here. I just facilitate it. So my only job is to open the doors, close the doors, and try not to let my ego get caught in the way. That's it, right? So, which is a hard thing to do. So at that point, if it's a no, right, then it's a no for a reason. So it's not just like, no, we're not going to do soul retrieval on you. And I'm speaking on behalf of the spirits here. It's usually something like, okay, well, maybe she's in a place right now where she really needs to focus on her physical health or whatever, maybe doing what she's already doing. And in 3 months, she used to check in with me, and then we're going to talk about where she's at. But in the meantime, the spirits have asked maybe that she, does this or she does this or whatever. They'll give her kind of a task, something to help her with her healing. And so, even that very act, the spirits are already working with this person because because we've gone to the spirits and said, okay, well, what does this person need? And the spirits have said, oh, she needs this and this, and she needs to come to you in 3 months. Or soul retrieval is great, but you know what, Kim? Not with you. Send her over to your friend Sue or to your friend Michelle, or you know what I mean? Or I recently had someone who came to me and the spirit said, well, it's okay for her to do the work, but you're not the one to do it with her. Your spell's not going to work for her. She needs somebody who is a shamanic practitioner and also who does psychoanalysis. Okay. I don't know why. I don't know what this girl's deal is. I have no idea. It's none of my business. Right? That's what the spirit said. And I told this woman, and she was like, that's exactly what I'm looking to do, and here's why. And it all fit. It was like, okay. So she went on her way, and and things work out. As long as we follow, for me, in my practice, what the spirits tell me to do, and don't let myself get in the way of that, then the healing will come about for that client.
Yeah, I find that as well when you're dealing with spirit and spirit guides. They always have a way of doing divine timing with everything. It's like you do it this way, step by step by step, and there's the reason why, exactly why. So definitely understand that.
Yeah, and some, at the beginning it can be hard. People who are in the midst of their spiritual awakening, it can be hard to trust that, right? When the spirits are saying, don't buy the car today, wait tomorrow, or, whatever it is, it's hard to trust that. But when we learn to trust our intuition, i.e. our spirit guides whispering in our ear, that's when the magic happens. It really is. But that requires our trusting ourselves, which is, that requires us to be healthy in our own lives. But I'm thinking, so you asked when that's just intake, right? So if I am going to see someone, if they're coming in person, then what we'll do is we'll set a date, usually about 2 weeks in advance, right? I don't want to do it too soon, because from the time that we set the date and set the intention, the power builds around the ceremony. And then if we're doing it in person, by the time the person actually shows up at my house, most of the time I'll already have opened the ceremony. So they're walking into an open ceremony, right? And we will, usually the way I work with my clients, and I think every practitioner is different. But for me, I do what's called extraction work first. And then I will do the soul retrieval work or whatever power restoration we're going to do, power animal retrieval or whatever. And so for me, if I work with a client and I do, for example, soul retrieval, which is far and away what most people ask for, I will do extraction work within that ceremony. I will do power animal retrieval within that ceremony. The way I see it is that if I'm going to journey into the spirit world for someone, I'm going to do everything I can for them, because it's a rare thing, right? So I'm gonna be like their agent, and I'm going to ask their spirit guides everything I would want to ask if it were me, about me, and I'm going to get as much information as I can. And I basically I gather information for that client or whatever it is the spirits are giving me until either my brain is full and I know I'm not going to be able to retain anymore, or the spirits say, right, go, you're done, okay, and I go. So when I come back into the ordinary reality, then I'm bringing either these messages or this power for that client, and then there's an exchange of that power is restored to the client. And then after that, there's a period that, you know, what'll usually happen is I'll leave the room, let the client just integrate the power that's been restored to them in their body and kind of reground, right? Come back to the present. And then usually we have a cup of tea. I share with them the journey, and then they go home. And, you know, and what'll happen is generally there's things that they're asked to do when they get home. And then we will follow back by either by email or by phone, whatever the client wants. You know, some clients will just touch base and that's all they want. Other clients are like, no, we have to have a call. No problem. About 2 weeks later, you know, I want to make sure that they're okay. And often once that power starts integrating within their bodies, that's where the questions come up. And they've already worked with me, so I'm happy to answer those questions that they need to and to provide that support. Yeah, and then if we do it virtually, as happens, you know, for over a year now, it's been almost all virtual. Then what'll happen is we just do it via Zoom, and it's a little bit different. So usually we'll get on Zoom. I've already opened the ceremony though. It is still a full-on ceremony, and so that ceremony extends to where the client is, and we will have a wee chat. And then usually what happens is I'll get off of Zoom and I'll do the journey. So when I do extraction work, when the person's in my living room, it's like the ceremony's happening in the living room. The spirits are coming into the living room until I'm ready to do the soul retrieval journey back into the spirit world to retrieve stuff. But if we're doing it virtually, everything is going to happen in the spirit world. So, you know, I'm basically laying on the floor with my eyes covered, right? Either rattling myself or listening to a drumming track or what have you, doing that journey. So then when I'm done the journey, I make my notes for the client. I send them a text, right? Use the same link, and we get back on and I will share with them what's happening. But you know, it is still ceremony. It is still a ceremonial space. It's still sacred space, even though we're doing it via Zoom. And then again, when we're done, the client will go. Once the client goes, then I close the ceremony, right? And yeah, and then that's pretty much it. Then we circle back in about 2 weeks' time, unless the client needs to speak before that. But I don't like to go longer than 2 weeks.
No, that sounds like a really in-depth explanation on how you proceed with your clients and what the benefits are. What are some of the benefits actually afterwards that people experience? Like, have they come back to you and shared their healing afterwards with you? Talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, not everybody does, but when they do, it's such a gift. It's just it's so lovely, you know, to know the impact that that they're opening themselves up to spirit and accepting this type of work has had on their life. You know, the biggest thing about this work to understand is that shamanism, these ceremonies are about empowering the person, right? There is almost a misnomer that we're going to go into ceremony and we're going to say to the spirits, okay, you know, heal me, right? It doesn't work that way. We are put in this earth to heal ourselves. And sometimes it's a little much. And so the spirits, they come in, they intervene just enough to empower us, but they don't disempower us by doing the work for us, right? So the impact can be anything. For a lot of people, the impact can be difficult, right? We do soul retrieval. We begin to release trauma. Now, one would say that's a good thing, right? That's a healing thing, but that can be a tough thing as well. Every single client I work with, I tell them, do not fire your therapist. Now is not the time to fire your therapist. But I know, we laugh about it, but it's true, because sometimes what can happen with shamanic work is that, I go see a therapist, right? And they're going to say, right, tell me what's going on. And I'm going to tell them, but I don't tell nobody everything. Nobody knows everything about, ourselves, right? We don't share everything that honestly. With the spirits, though, we don't have to. They already know. They know our deal. They know us, for good, for bad, they know. So when we start working with the spirits, we are often confronted with perhaps things that we really didn't want to think about, things we didn't want to consider. So it's very important to have a support network around you, whether that be your best friends, whether that be medical practitioners, right? But stepping into that work, from my perspective, can only be seen as a good thing, provided the person is ready and they have the right support network. So that's sort of the most intense. Other clients, if they've been struggling until they come and see me and the spirits work with them, then often for them, the outcome is very different. And I've had all of these experiences, by the way, where it can be just like, I feel whole for the first time in a decade. I can access my full range of emotions for the first time since this happened. And remember, everybody always thinks I want to access my full range of emotions, which means I want to laugh, I want to feel joy, I want to feel excitement and hope. But we forget that also means finally you can reach the bottom of your grief. Finally, you can acknowledge your disappointment, your anger, or your hurt. It's a full range of emotions. But what a gift it is to be able to access them, because not everybody can, depending on what we've been through. And we all go through periods in our lives where we're not able to. So that's a big thing. Being able to soul retrieval returns our gifts to us. So what gifts do we as vital humans have? Oh, certainly the full range of emotion, right? But also things like our chutzpah, a sense of adventure, a sense of safety, and sensuality and sexuality, a sense of empowerment, our identities. All of these things can, if not be restored to us in the moment, the spirit put us on that path towards the restoration of those gifts, right? And towards the healing, and towards living the lives that we are able to live if we are willing to take that leap of faith and to step into our healing and to love ourselves enough to be able to do that, and to trust what is around us enough to be able to do that. So, so it's pretty deep work, and it brings about very deep work in the client. And then the third part of it, I've had a lot of clients who came back to me and they're like, oh, what? The spirits do such beautiful work. It's breathtaking sometimes. And, I have one of my earlier clients, and he's a gorgeous artist. And after his soul retrieval, he went into this place of divine inspiration and painted everything. And now he's this incredibly successful artist, and he shows in Toronto, and his work is worth thousands. And wow. And this is because, it's nothing to do with me, because the spirit showed up for him, and he was open, he was ready. And so he took that and he trusted it. And it became what it became in his life, and it created this incredible change. For me, here I am living in Scotland. What the heck? That all came from my spirituality. That's all come from the spirit. Kim, you need to do this. Kim, hey, girl, listen, you got to go over here. You got to quit this job. You got to take this job. You need to, when we follow what the spirits put in front of us, when we accept the gift, that are ours, then incredible transformation can happen in our lives. And even when that transformation is hard in the moment, right? If we have the strength and courage to be accountable to our healing and accountable to ourselves, then the spirits are ready and waiting to assist us in that journey.
Yeah, I believe that 100%, that the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. So that's a wonderful statement that you just said right there. And I appreciate that 100%. So just before we let you go here today, and again, Kim, thank you so much for coming on to Haunting Live and sharing all your wisdom and insight and your experiences through your journey. It's been really interesting here today, so thank you so much. My one question I tend to ask on the show here is about people being in lockdown right now over the last year and a half or so. A lot of people might be experiencing things that they're not being used to. They might be experiencing more spirituality. They might be seeing spirits. They might be hearing noises. They might think they're going crazy or something. But what would you say to people that are experiencing things right now in lockdown, if they're still in lockdown, and they think they might be spiritual related? What sort of advice would you give to somebody?
Trust your gut. I mean, I can talk for hours, clearly. But really, when it comes to that, trust your gut. And then when you learn to trust your gut, you can start to calibrate how you feel about things. So, for example, you have a spiritual experience. So you're hanging out in your living room, and there are ghosts and there are spirits. There's a difference, right? Like I know Trevor, you work with, this is really your area. And a ghost feels very, very different than, an ancestor or a spirit guide coming to you. However, for me, I know no matter what I see, I startle. It's just, I'm going to be doing this work for 50 years if I'm lucky, and I will never get rid of that startle. Yeah, right? Yeah, right? Like, I always think I should be past that. No, thank you, seriously. It's embarrassing, but there it is. But anyways, but the thing is that I get the startle, and then my training kicks in. And I'm like, what am I feeling here? The spirits, our helper spirits, they don't scare us. They don't want to scare us. They're not intrusive. They're not trying to hurt us. They're not trying to get a rise, an emotional reaction from us of any kind, right? When the spirit comes, I startle. I'm like, oh, what the hell is that? And then I'm like, wait, who is, because I'm safe. If it's not that, if it's more of an earthbound a ghost or, earthbound spirit, or like something that's a little darker, then, you know when you feel it in your bones. If something's not kosher, it's not, right? And then it's like, okay, I have to deal with this, right? So all of that comes from, for me, trusting my gut, right? And then when I trust my gut, okay, I just had this experience. What's happening? Is this something I can deal with? Is this something I don't want to deal with? And then asking the question, and beyond that, I would just say that, everything. What is that Yeats quote? Everything is real. Everything exists, and the dust is it, and the earth is just dust beneath our feet. I have that right, but it's true. The spirits are around us. Everybody can have a connection to their spirit. It's not some great gift that we need to be born with, right? We all have a right to spirituality. It doesn't matter who you are, where you were born, or what your community is, or everybody has the right to access their spirituality, right? And we do it in lots of different ways, but the core of that is the same. It's about building relationships with our spirits that are watching us. Maybe it's our angels. So, I know you obviously connect with the angels, right? But whatever that is for you, it's real and it's beautiful and it's our birthright and we deserve it. And so I would just say, trust your gut, trust yourself. And that's it.
No, that's wonderful and actually quite beautiful. So thank you for your guidance on that here today. And thank you so much, Kim, for being here. I really appreciate it, taking your time out. I know we are scheduled for later on, but you're got other plans. But thank you for making rearrangements for us here at Haunting Live.
Oh, thank you so much for accommodating me. I am so grateful. Guys, I was supposed to do this live, and then I booked this impromptu trip, and Trevor has been amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem at all on our end at all. It's been wonderful having you. Before we let you go, can we allow a second or two for you to promote anything like your website or anything else that you want to share?
Oh, of course. Thank you. Yes, everyone, go to my website. It is www.cedarlight, as in the tree, cedar, and light, as in light. So cedarlight.com. And my name is Kim Mclaughlin, and I do have a blog where I write about almost everything that we've talked about tonight, probably except for my own story, but everything else about spirituality is there. And I blog, I don't know, not so much right now, but every couple of months I tend to blog. And if you have questions, you can also email me at cedarlighthealing. Oh, the website, it's www.cedarlighthealing.com. And if you want to email me questions, please feel free. I love that. I'm at cedarlighthealing@gmail.com. And I will always, if someone asks me a spiritual question, I always endeavor to get back to them with proper, good responses. So I want you to feel free. There's no pressure. You don't need to book a session but if you have questions, you can email me. And, if it starts to butt up against my boundaries, I'll let you know. But I want to make everyone clear, talking about spirituality and answering questions about spirituality or just helping people to make sense of what's going on with them. That's why I'm here, man. That's my favorite thing in the world. So feel free to email me, cedarlighthealing@gmail.com. Go to my blog at cedarlighthealing.com.
Okay, that's wonderful, Kim. Again, thank you so much for being here. I know you have a busy weekend coming up, and so do we here. It's a long weekend in May, so looking forward to relaxing a little bit this weekend, and also being here with you guys on social media. So thank you so much again for being here with us on Haunting Live. It was wonderful.
You're so very welcome. I was so honored and happy to do it, and you guys have a fabulous long weekend. This is the weekend I miss being back in Ontario. So enjoy it for me. Thank you so much for having me, Trevor.
We will. Enjoy yourself and enjoy your weekend as well there in Scotland. And thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And that was Kim from all the way in Scotland, sharing her views on what she does in shamanism and what she learned on her journey. So we thank her so much for being here. It was really insightful to have her as a guest here at Haunting Live. And for you guys for tuning in this week, thank you guys so much for following us on Haunting Live Podcast on Facebook and also on social media, and also for listening on the podcast apps if you missed the live show here on Facebook. But just before we let you guys go, again, thank you for tuning in. For those watching, let me know how you like the new background here and the layout. Leave a note in the comments and let us know how you feel about the new layout here on Haunting Live. I like it a lot, so I hope you guys do too. But also, this weekend, check out our social media. We'll be posting some brand new investigation videos. We're going to be out filming this weekend a little bit, so watch our Facebook page and stuff for some new investigation videos. I think we're going to hit a couple graveyards probably and see what we can pick up. So look forward to that. And also, don't forget, Chris here at Haunting Live has free angel readings every week. Twice a week actually, on Wednesdays around 8:30 and Saturdays at 3 o'clock. So if you want some guidance from your angels or any questions answered from your angels, please tune in right here on our Facebook, and you can get your free angel readings done by Chris here at Haunting Live Podcast. And also, we do have our current merch sale running on our website. Things are still all on half off prices. You can check out our merch products that we have for spirituality items that we have for sale. such as pendulums, smudging materials. We have different things like spiritual bags, different gift ideas, and also a whole bunch of crystals available on our website. So if you want something, now's the time to go check that out as well. But that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, and a big thank you again to Kim, coming from all the way from Scotland. And she's originally from here in Ontario, but she just recently moved all the way over there to Scotland, and we thank her for taking time out this weekend to be our guest this week. Very insightful. And other than that, guys, have a great long weekend, and we will see you right back here next week on Haunting Live Podcast. Take care, guys.
Did you hear that?